Imagine this. You are on a long road trip. You've been driving for hours. You get exhausted and your eyes start closing. You decide to pull over and rest in your car for a bit. The traffic around you slowly fades away. Now it is late at night. There is dead silence. Suddenly, you hear a knock on your window. You wake up, startled. You look outside, but there is no one there. But then, that knocking sound starts coming from the other side. Then from the back. It starts coming from all around the car. You feel like someone or something is walking around your vehicle. Just imagine the fear. These are the kinds of real stories I upload on this channel. These things actually happen to people. Just think about how terrified they must have been. If you have a story you want to share, my number is in the description below. You can write it down or send me a voice message. Now, let's get into today's stories. They are terrifying. If you get scared easily, say a prayer for protection now. It is said that when we talk about these dark entities, they come closer to listen. Let's begin.
My name is Ahmed, and I am from the city of Lahore. This story starts about 20 years ago. After my grandmother passed away, my grandfather got very sick, so our whole family moved into his massive house to take care of him. It was a huge property, and it actually had a hospital attached to it because my grandfather and my mother were both doctors. My dad worked on our family farms, so he was often away. This meant my sisters and I were often home alone. The house was always busy with cousins visiting, but there were rumors. Some cousins claimed they heard the sound of glass bangles at night. Others said they saw children playing in the courtyard at 3 a.m. One cousin even swore he saw a woman as tall as the ceiling standing in a room, just staring at him. We also used to hear our names being called when no one was there, but since we were kids, we thought these were just made-up stories. I was actually interested in ghost hunting and wanted to see a ghost myself. That was a big mistake. I had no idea how dangerous it is to mess with these things. One night, all of us cousins went out for dinner at the famous food street in Lahore. On the way back, the elevator was full, so my cousin and I took the stairs. On one of the floors, it was completely silent, and there was a terrible smell. It was an unbearable, rotten stench. Standing there was a man. He walked up to us and handed us a wooden decoration that looked like a kite. It had the restaurant's logo on it. He said, "Sir, this is a gift for you." We laughed, thought it was cool, and took it home. I hung that kite on the wall in my gaming room. A few days later, just for fun, my cousins and I made a homemade Ouija board on a piece of paper and used a bottle cap to play. We played all night, thinking it was just a joke, but soon after, strange things started happening in my room. I began hearing loud breathing sounds. It sounded exactly like a zombie from a movie, a heavy, wheezing breath. The scary part was the sound always came from behind me. If I looked at the TV, the sound came from behind the sofa. The back door of the room would slide open on its own. Then the kite incident happened. One morning, my mom came into my room. She saw the kite and got angry. She said, "Throw this away. It gives me a bad feeling." She threw it in the trash bin.
2 days later, Mom came back and yelled, "Ahmed, why did you hang it up again?" I was shocked. The kite was back on the wall. I took it down myself and threw it in the dumpster outside the house. The next morning, it was back on the wall again. No matter where I hid it or threw it, it always returned. At night, I felt like someone was sleeping next to me. Sometimes it felt like someone was brushing their hair against my face. My sister started waking up screaming, saying a tall woman in black clothes was trying to kill her.
7 or 8 years passed. My grandfather passed away, but the haunting continued. One night, I was alone watching the security camera feed on the TV. It was midnight. I looked at the kitchen camera. It was pitch black, but the night vision was on. I saw a large shadow of a woman wearing a long robe, or abaya. As soon as I looked at it, the shadow started moving. It began circling the walls of the kitchen, round and round. I was terrified. I recorded it on my phone to send to my mom. You can see the video on your screen right now. Ahmed captured this shadow in a completely dark room. Look at how it moves across the wall.
Then the COVID pandemic hit. My siblings and I got sick, so we isolated ourselves in a different part of the house. We stayed in the blue room. This room was famous in our family for being the darkest and most haunted place in the house. One night, I looked into the corner of the room. There was a huge figure standing there. It looked like a woman in a black cloak, but she was 10 to 12 feet tall. She was just staring at us in silence. I whispered to my sister, "Do you see that?" She said, "Yes, what is that?" I turned on the lights and it vanished. I turned the lights off and it was back, standing in the exact same spot. We were so scared, but we were used to this by now. We played a prayer on audio and went to sleep with the lights on.
A few months later, during Ramadan, the fasting month, my aunt was visiting. My older sister and I gave up our rooms and slept in the room next to the lobby. For 2 nights, I heard sounds outside my door, like heavy metal pipes being dragged and men talking. We checked cameras and asked guards, but no one was there. On the last night, my sister and I were awake for the pre-dawn meal. I had a bad feeling, so I told her, "Let's play the protection prayers on the laptop." We played them for hours. Then we shut down the laptop, closed the lid, and went to eat. After eating, my sister went to the bathroom. I decided to prank her. I held the door handle so she couldn't get out. I was waiting for her to try the door so we could laugh. Suddenly, from behind the sofa in the living room, I heard a loud demonic growl and heavy breathing. It sounded like a dying animal. I was paralyzed with fear. I immediately let go of the door and pressed my back against the wall. My sister came out laughing, asking why I locked her in. I didn't tell her about the sound. I just wanted to get back to the safety of my room. We started walking back to the room. As we stepped into the drawing room, that same growl and heavy breathing came from the corridor on the left. I froze. This time my sister heard it too. She looked at me in absolute terror. I started shouting nervously, "See? I told you! Did you hear that?" Suddenly, bam! A massive thud came from the lobby. Then the sound of heavy running. It sounded like a giant human sprinting towards us.
We saw a huge figure run past the glass wall partition. And then the scariest thing happened. Inside my empty, locked room, the laptop that was shut down and closed started blasting the prayers at full volume. We ran to my mom's room screaming. When we checked later, the laptop lid was open, it was logged in, and YouTube was playing. It felt like the entity was mocking us, saying, "I am here, and I can touch whatever I want." A religious scholar later told us that our use of the Ouija board years ago had invited something that attached itself to us. We moved out, but that family still owns old houses with even darker stories.
Our next story comes from a family in Carniwal, Punjab. They lived in a large joint family system. As the family grew, they bought a property next door to use as a guest house. The previous owner, a lonely man, gave them a weird warning. He said, "Make 2 doors for this house. Sometimes the doors lock from the inside on their own." They ignored him and built the house anyway. The house had a ground floor and an upper floor. It was mostly used for guests or when the men wanted to hang out.
One night, my uncle and his friends were upstairs watching a movie. Suddenly, the flower pots behind them started shaking. They felt a presence watching them. When they turned around, no one was there. They went back to the movie. The pots shook again, and then, crash! The pots fell over and broke. They ran out of there immediately. That was the first sign that the previous owner was right. Later, another uncle fell asleep there during the day. He suffered severe sleep paralysis. He couldn't breathe or move for a long time until he recited prayers. Even in the scorching heat of summer, that house was always unnaturally cold inside. We had a cousin who was a bit of a troublemaker. He would often sit on a sofa in that house at night, talking to thin air. He would pour 2 drinks, one for himself and one for the empty seat next to him. When people asked him what he was doing, he'd say, "I'm sitting with my friend. A family lives here, and this is their son." Everyone thought he was just drunk or losing his mind, but he insisted he was sharing meals with them. Another cousin didn't believe in ghosts. He made a bet with the family. He said, "I will walk through the ground floor alone." He entered through one door. When he reached the connecting door near the backyard, whack! An invisible force slapped him hard across the face. He fell unconscious. When the family found him, he had a high fever. A spiritual healer told them that he had entered an area belonging to the spirits, and they punished him. Later, my aunt and her family moved into the upper floor. Her daughter was deeply religious and studying the Quran. She kept a clay water pot on the roof for birds. One day, she saw the lid of the pot lifting on its own. Water was scooped out and the lid was placed back. She went upstairs to check. As soon as she reached the stairs, smack! She was slapped hard by an invisible hand and knocked unconscious. A scholar communicated with the entity. It turned out to be a pious Muslim Jinn living on the roof. He said, "I was taking water for my ablution, wudu, to pray, and she disturbed me." He told the family they could stay, but they had to respect his space. The haunting continued. One day, my uncle's son was walking up the stairs. He saw a long, hairy black arm stretch out from the corridor. It slapped him right in the face. He fainted on the spot. Another time, a cousin was playing cricket outside. The ball hit a tree and fell into a pot of food that was being cooked nearby. He picked the ball up and came home. Suddenly, his body started twisting. His arms and legs bent in unnatural ways. The scholar revealed that the ball had landed in the Jinn's food. The entities were angry. One of them possessed the boy. Through the boy, the entity demanded massive amounts of food, 40 plates of rice at a time, which the boy would eat in minutes.
Years later, a newlywed couple in the family stayed in a specific room in that house. They fought constantly and eventually got divorced. My father and uncle slept in that same room once. In the middle of the night, their single beds actually levitated and were thrown in opposite directions, one to the right, one to the left. They ran out and never slept there again. My aunt also reported waking up at night to hear cooking sounds in the kitchen. She would see the stove on and food cooking, but no one was there. By morning, the kitchen was spotless. Today, that house stands completely empty. No one dares to live there. Even passing by it gives us the chills. Those were today's stories. If you enjoyed them, please like the video. If you haven't heard the previous episodes, go check them out. I highly recommend them. Take care of yourself and stay safe.